Dawn broke over Kingston like a blade. Thin, bright, already hot. I'd slept 2 hours on the cot above the harbour office, a fan rattling as if it wanted to fly away. The call came at 4:12 a.m., a number I didn't recognize, a voice I did. "Noah," it said. "It's Osha. I need you." Osha was an investigative reporter and my ex, and she didn't say those words unless there was a hole in the boat and sharks in the water. I met her years back when I still wore a badge. I hadn't for 18 months now. Private security work kept me fed, but it didn't answer the itch between my shoulder blades, the one that woke when stories didn't line up. "What's wrong?" I asked, sitting up, feeling the pull in my ribs from last month's mistake outside Spanish Town. "Come to Rockfort Mineral Baths," she said. "Sunrise. And bring your camera." "Usher, please." Then a click, and, in the pause, the sea. Gulls. Someone downstairs cursing the ice machine. I shaved with a dull blade, threw a clean shirt over the scar tissue map of my chest, and checked the Pelican case. Canon body, 2 lenses, spare batteries, nitrogen-sealed cards. Not my usual kit, but when Osha said camera, she meant evidence. I locked up and stepped into a city yawning awake. Vendors with crates balanced on their hips, taxi men leaning on horns, a boy in uniform running toward a bus that was leaving anyway. The eastern road ran along the water, blue-gray under an unsettled sky. Over the palisadoes, cloud stacks rose like dark fortresses. Radio muttered about a tropical wave building over Hispaniola. It wasn't the season to ignore those. I killed it and listened to the tires, the hiss and hum. Osha had sounded composed, but her breath had a tremor like a string pulled too tight. At Rockfort, steam rose from the pools and drifted across the cracked concrete. An old man sat on a bench with a towel over his shoulders, the shape of a bird tattoo blurred on his collarbone. Osha wasn't there. I waited 5 minutes before my phone lit again. A new message, no words, just a pin drop farther up toward Warika Hills. I parked in a lot where stray dogs slept with their heads tucked, crossed a ditch, and climbed. The hillside was scrub and scree, the air sharp with wild sage. Halfway up, a sound reached me that didn't belong, the impatient thrum of a small drone. I paused behind a stand of lignum vitae and watched a black quadcopter mask slip along the slope, a red eye winking. "Usha!" I called softly. The drone veered like it heard me, then zipped away. When I found her, she was crouched behind a limestone outcrop, hair pinned back with a pencil. The camera around her neck was dusty. She looked thinner than I remembered. That pulled at me in ways I didn't like. "You came," she said, and hugged me fast, as if the ground might shift. "I always do. What are we looking at?" She pointed her chin toward a corrugated roof compound stenciled Alta Luna Shipping. It clung to the hillside above a dirt track. The front gate was chained. A white pickup sat inside with a tarp over the bed. The building had new security cameras and old concrete, money overlaid on neglect. "Alta Luna appeared 6 months ago on the corporate register," Osha said, voice low. "Director listed as one M. Samuels. Address in Cayman. No website, no tax ID I can verify. But the trucks come at night. No customs records. No harbor notices. And people disappear. Disappear how? Women from the riverside bars in downtown. A fisherman from Port Royal who filmed a night offload. He told me last week a man in a white suit came to his house and asked him if life was a circle or a straight line. He laughed. The next day his boat floated empty near Lime Cay. Police. She scraped a thumbnail over the camera strap. "I've got one friend left at Halfway Tree." He said, "Osha, if you love sleep, leave it." So I called you. I watched the gate. A shadow moved behind the glass office door. The drone reappeared like a mosquito and hovered to our left, whirring. "That's not them," Asha said. "That's mine." She lifted a controller. "I sent it earlier." Signal dropped. I looked at her screen. The last saved clip showed a covered crate lifted by a forklift, white, with a blue diamond hazard sign. Not human cargo. Chemicals? But the tarp over the pickup bed. It was sagging in a way that suggested something that breathed once. "Tell me the plan," I said. "I publish tomorrow," she said. "This is the missing piece. A link from the hills to the harbor. You take photos of that truck bed. We leave. We don't be heroes." I believed her until the wind changed. When it did, it brought two smells, bleach and something under it, like wet coins and faint sweetness. Asha smelled it too. Her jaw tightened. The office door opened. A man stepped out in a linen shirt the color of unripe banana, sleeves rolled. He didn't look around. He walked to the pickup, lifted the tarp, and revealed a blue cooler, the kind fishermen use. He opened it, reached in, and lifted a clear 4 bag. It was full of something pale, like melted wax. He held it to the light, smiled, and set it back down. "Organ preservation fluid," Asha whispered. "Custodial. I've seen it in a hospital story last year." Her hand found my wrist. "Noah." I took 3 shots, breath held. The shutter sounded like a clap in a church. The man's head snapped up. The drone began again, but this time it wasn't ours. A second machine rose above the compound roof, bigger, with fixed arms and a camera ball that blinked blue. It turned toward the hillside. "Down," I said. Asha didn't argue. We slid behind the rock as the drone rose, paused, and sent out a single, searching beep that felt like it entered my teeth. A moment later my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I muted it. The drone drifted, hovered, then angled north. The man in linen spoke into a walkie, listening to replies that never reached us. "We need to move," I said. Asha nodded, but her eyes were on the cooler, as if it were an altar. "Fast," she said. "Before they decide the mountain has ears." Moved, we slid back along the slope, keeping low, boots skidding on loose rock. The drone's hum faded toward the next ridge, but the man in linen walked to the fence line and studied the hill as if it were a mirror. I kept my head below the crest and counted to 60 before I spoke. "Truck first," I said, "then the harbor." Asha nodded. "Harbor office is safer." She didn't sound convinced. We cut down toward the car, circling through scrub. Twice I heard distant engines. By the time we reached the lot, the stray dogs were gone. That spooked me more than the drone. Animals know the change in air before we do. On the Palisadoes Road, the sky had that bruised, swollen look the radio warned about. Whitecaps snapped against the sand spit. We drove in silence until Asha said, "There's a second piece you should know." "Tell me now." 2 nights ago I found a case file in an old Dropbox. 4 years old, never published. It had a name that keeps turning up when I scratch at Altaluna. Malek Samuels, born in Clarendon, vanished 15 years ago, resurfaced with a Cayman footprint and a taste for investment in medical devices. The reporter who kept the file died in a hit-and-run in Barbican. The driver was never found. Your Dropbox. An editor's. She shared it with me before she fled to Canada. Asha exhaled. "Noah, some of the photos in that file showed coolers like the one we saw. Different color. Same model." I drove faster to the harbor. I unlocked my office and checked the cameras on the pier. Nothing unusual. A pilot boat nosing out, a dredger like a rusted beetle. Inside, The air felt wrong. It took me a second to see the postcard taped to my desk lamp, a glossy shot of a white sand cove with a crooked palm and turquoise water. Montego Bay tourist trash. On the back, someone had written a line in block letters. Life is a circle. There was no signature. Osher looked at me. "You're fisherman," I said. "I didn't tell you the second half of what he said," Osher murmured. After the question, the man in the white suit told him that the circle was a comfort. Everything returns. Debt. Love. Blood. I put the card in a zip bag, then slotted my camera card into the reader. Osher leaned over my shoulder. We scrolled through shots of the compound, the pickup, the cooler, the 4-bag held like a trophy. "That one," she said, tapping the screen. Zoom. We magnified. A logo on the cooler lid resolved. A stylized moon with a notch out of it. Alta Luna's crescent. "Not subtle," I said. "Confidence masquerading as brand." I copied everything twice, hid one SD card behind the fan grill, and uploaded a password-protected folder to a cloud I paid cash for. Old habit. The storm outside darkened, rain starting in slow, deliberate taps. The office phone rang. I let it ring out. It rang again, then my cell chimed with the same unknown number from the hill. I set it on speaker. A male voice, amused. "Mr. Marsh. Former detective. Lately a watcher of doors. Ms. Bennett. The courageous pen. We should talk." "Who is this?" I asked. "You know my name and you know the shape of my suit. I prefer we skip theatrics. The weather will be unkind shortly, and roads are prone to accidents when people are in a rush." A pause. In the quiet I heard gulls and the far chop of a helicopter. "Return what you stole." "Stole," Osher said. "You mean the truth?" He chuckled. "The truth, Ms. Bennett, is expensive and perishable. I'm a conservationist." He hung up. Osher stared at the screensaver bouncing across the monitor. "He knows where we are. Or he knows you, and guesses I'd bring you here." I shut off the lights. "We move. To where?" "Coronation Market. We'll disappear in noise." I zipped the Pelican and handed Osher a small canister. "Pepper spray. Don't argue." Traffic into downtown had stalled under the first bands of rain. On Pechon Street, vendors broke down tarps in a practiced dance. At the edge of the market the smell hit: ripe fruit, wet cardboard, diesel, and some sharp ammonia bite that said a cooler of fish had stayed out too long. We pushed into the press, bodies slick and impatient. I kept my hand on Osher's backpack and my head on a swivel near the spice aisle. A man in a white suit appeared where he shouldn't, as if the crowd parted because it recognized its shepherd. He wasn't the linen shirt guy. He was older, face smooth, hair close-cropped, shoes that stayed clean in mud. He smiled without teeth and lifted a hand like a conductor. "Mr. Marsh," he said, and I didn't ask how he knew my face. "Ms. Bennett, I appreciate industry. The circle likes when people move with purpose." "Then the circle can follow us to the police," Osher said. "The police are a chord we already tuned." Behind him, 2 men unzipped a duffel and removed something that wasn't a weapon but looked like one, a drone folded like a sleeping bat. The older man nodded. The bat unfolded. Its camera blinked alive. "Now," I said. "Run." We cut between stalls as the bat drone jittered into the air, its rotors like a swarm of hornets. Vendors shouted and swore at us. One grabbed Osher's sleeve and she slipped free with a whispered apology. I knocked over a crate of mangoes on purpose, and the fruits rolled like bright marbles under boots. The drone hesitated above the chaos, its camera seeking order where there was none. A whistle blew. Not police, a market guard with a baton. The man in the white suit lifted 2 fingers and the guard's whistle cut short. That told me all I needed to know about how deep the circle went. We emerged onto a side street slick with rain. Osher pointed. Route taxi. A white probox idled by a curb, already full. We squeezed into the back, and I shoved a $1,000 note at the driver. "Papine," I said. "Fast." The driver looked at my face, then the drone bobbing in the street mirror, then the rain, then decided the money's color beat his curiosity. He launched us into traffic, riding the shoulder, took the Mandela Highway like he was dancing, and shot past the roundabout toward the university. The drone tried to follow, but traffic and wet wind worked in our favor. "Why Papine?" he muttered. "Doctor." Osher's eyes were on the rear window. "If the fluid is what I think, I need someone who can confirm it without asking why." "Who?" "Dr. Olia Roy. She saved my cousin's baby last year when nobody else would." Osher bit her lip. "She owes me. Or I owe her. Both." In Papine the rain had thickened, blanketing the foothills. We bailed out, sprinted under awnings, and turned down a side lane where bougainvillea whipped against a zinc fence. Osher hammered on a blue door. After a while, a woman with tired eyes opened it a sliver. She wore scrubs with coffee stains and a lanyard with ID clipped crooked. "Osher," Dr. Roy said, "I have rounds in 20 minutes. This is Noah." 2 minutes, Osher said. Then we never existed. Inside, the clinic smelled of antiseptic and boiled water. A TV in the corner played muted news. Satellite swirls blooming over the Caribbean, captions warning of landslides. A generator thumped a beat. A nurse passed, nodded, didn't ask that we found an office. I pulled up the photos on a cheap tablet I kept for dirty work and set it on the desk. Dr. Roy didn't sit. She braced her hands on the back of a chair and leaned over the screen. "That bag," she said. "Custodial or HTK solution, yes. Used to preserve hearts, livers, kidneys. You don't transport it like that unless you have cold chain. The cooler looks insulated." She inhaled through her nose. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because people are disappearing," Osher said. "Because there's a company in the hills with a shipping license and no records." Dr. Roy's mouth compressed. "You want me to say organ trafficking. I want to say there are licit training programs and research labs that would use those fluids. In a hillside compound with men who send drones and write riddles on postcards?" I said. She closed her eyes for a second like a tired dancer drawing breath. "Osher, I warned you after the municipal audit story. The people you're poking can hire lawyers who dry themselves with court orders." "Help us," Osher whispered. Doctor. Roy looked from her to me to the window where rain stitched lines down the glass. "All right. I recognize the logo." She tapped the crescent. Alta Luna is attached to a non-profit called Revive Horizons. They sponsor surgical missions, flush PR, glossy photos of smiling children with cleft repairs. They run pop-up clinics in St. Mary. They're darlings with certain donors abroad. But when they came to the hospital last month, their coordinator asked for late night or access to reduce bed pressure. When we declined, a man left an ice chest in the corridor. "What was inside?" Osher asked. "It was empty." Dr. Roy rubbed her brow. "But the smell stuck. Like a butcher shop cleaned too fast." A crash sounded in the hallway. Not thunder, doors. The nurse's voice raised in alarm, cut off by a male shout that tried for friendly and landed wrong. "I killed the monitor." Osher pocketed the tablet. Dr. Roy pointed to a rear exit. "Back," she said. "Stairs lead to the alley." We hurried. In the stairwell, the generator's thump masked footfalls below. Osher squeezed my hand once, quick. The door at the bottom opened and two men in rain jackets filled the frame. Their jackets had no logos. Their smiles were high and political. "Miss Bennet," the taller said. "Miss Bennet, Miss Bennet. The circle is efficient." I lifted the tablet and hurled it. It bounced off his forehead, and that second was enough. Osher sprayed pepper in a fine arc, and we bolted past, coughing. Outside, rain slapped our faces. We ran through the alley, turned blindly, and burst into a yard where a corrugated roof funneled water like a broken gutter. A gate stood locked with a chain. Osher climbed. I braced the chain with my forearms and took her weight when she slipped. She landed on the other side catquick and dragged a bin under the fence for me. When I dropped, a horn blared. A route taxi had idled on the corner to avoid a flooded pothole. We fell into it, yelled "Irish Town," and wet bills stuck to the driver's palm. We climbed as the storm climbed with us. The city spread below in a grey sheet. Somewhere a landslide would already be kissing a road. The driver blessed himself and asked if we were running from debt. "Something like that," I said. "Day in Irish Town. Mist swallowed the houses." The driver refused to go farther. We got out at a cafe with chairs stacked and a chalkboard declaring, "Closed for weather." Osher stared uphill. "Alta Luna has a satellite site near here," she said. "Revive Horizons lists a retreat. They advertise restorative wellness with sacred mountain air." "Retreats make good covers," I said. "And good traps," she said. "But the circle turns." We climbed uphill. The road to the retreat was mud and nerve. Wind dragged bamboo over the track. We reached a cedar gate marked Revive Horizons and slid around it into a neat compound of cabins and prayer flags strangled by rain. The third cabin had a keypad. Osher guessed a date only she would know. It opened. Inside, LEDs hummed over stainless steel and a humming fridge. We lifted a blue lid and saw a human kidney floating in clear solution, stamped with an ink code. Footsteps. The door clicked. The man in the white suit entered, umbrella dripping as if this were a golf club locker room. Linen shirt lingered behind him. "Donation," he said mildly when Osher said harvest. "Choice, not theft. The state's waiting lists kill quietly. We are an ugly answer to a beautiful lie." "You disappeared a fisherman," I said. "I did not," he said. "But the sea is circular. Things come back." He studied us with a surgeon's patience. "Miss Bennet, you will profile our clinics. You will soften your edges. In exchange, your brother's visa concern dissolves. Mr. Marsh, you will return the images and go on keeping small doors. The storm will erase certain inconvenient buildings. If not, an injunction will do it." Osher went still. "You looked into my family." He smiled. "I look into everything. Life is a circle." Lightning staggered the lights. He took it as a cue. "Think fast," he said, and stepped out. The lock turned. Osher sat, hands shaking, then looked at me. "He was right about one thing. I called you because I needed a counterweight," she said. "If I fall in, you pull me out. If you fall, I pull." She stood. "Help me catalog codes. Then we kill the cold." We shot every label, every serial. When the power flickered and stopped, the generator tried and failed. The room warmed by a breath. Somewhere outside a bell clanged and a voice screamed about a culvert. Osher shoved the rear window. Brown water boomed in a channel below like a freight train. "Jump," she said. We slid into mud that grabbed to the knees, then into the torrent. It slammed us against stones. Vines whipped our faces. A cabin groaned and folded like wet paper. Men shouted. We crawled onto a bank and lay staring at rain until the gong in my chest stopped. By night, the retreat was a broken smear down the slope. We hitchhiked to a church in Papine where a pastor owed Osha a favor and a password. She uploaded the cooler, the codes, the quotes we could stomach using. She sent packages to 4 editors, 2 lawyers, my one honest cop. She scheduled posts and left the laptop in a donation bin. 3 days later, while the country pulled trees from roads and counted roofs, Revive Horizons called the report slander. Alta Luna filed an injunction. A judge recused himself, and then, mysteriously, all the other judges were unavailable. Police tape ringed a landslide where the operating cabin had been. The ministry promised an inquiry. Talk radio spoke in circles. On the 4th day, an envelope lay under my door. Inside, my old badge, Osha's press pass, and a photo of us climbing through the retreat window. On the back, block letters, debt, love, blood. Below them, in Osha's hand, break it where it bends, I called. Her phone was dark. Her brother texted that she was on assignment. A taximan swore he'd taken a woman who looked like her to Tinson Pen at dawn. A pilot said a chartered helicopter lifted off toward St. Mary in bad weather with 2 passengers and a cooler. The manifest listed 1 M. Samuels and 1 A. Brown. Nobody admitted to seeing them land, that I waited for panic. Instead, something stranger settled, a shape of absence that behaved like intent. Osha had walked toward the circle, or been swallowed by it, or both. Maybe she believed she could write it hollow from the inside. Maybe she'd traded me for proximity. The truth was not generous enough to explain which. The photos were enough to make people whisper, not enough to make anyone powerful bleed. The storm did the rest. The inquiry stalled in the mud. The retreat promised to rebuild with stricter compliance. A donor in New Jersey issued a statement about miscommunication. The fisherman's widow taped our article beside his boat and lit a candle that would not stay lit. I keep the postcard in my Pelican case. Sometimes at night I press my thumb to the ink and try to feel heat. When the phone rings before dawn, I answer. Often it's nothing. Sometimes it's a voice that says, "Lo." I can hear it rolling. The circle is not supernatural. It is money and hunger and a rehearsal of polite phrases. But on certain nights, with the mountain sweating and the sea taking back sand, it sounds like a drum. Still, it moves.